thinks it would connect, but now we should be okay. I got to make sure I'm connecting to the right one. There we go. All right, Lauren's in the house already. So we got a
Nice.
surprise for you today. Hopefully all the audio is working well. We haven't did this in a long time, having somebody on. It's Projo. Projo is in the house. How you doing there, Projo?
Doing well, doing well. Excited to talk some playoff hockey and my Reading Royals that I had the pleasure of being on doing the color commentating with Eric now. We got to win yesterday, so I have days off until this weekend. So now I get to focus on the Calder Cup and the NHL playoffs, as well as some Kelly Cup games. So there's a lot of hockey action to watch, which is the most fun time of the year. So.
Yeah. And so I guess the best thing we can do is just get right in it. And I don't know about everybody else out here, but for me, the story of the night is it seems like the league is getting rid of the old way of doing playoffs. They want to open it up out there. They're not throwing the whistles away.
Yeah, in the first games it seemed like that. I think also sometimes in the postseason, I know I talked about this with people who are at the ECHL level. In the first games, they tend to sometimes have more calls just because the refs, the way the playoff levels go, and then it balances it out. Where I think if this happens in the game twos and threes and all that, and tonight and continues to compoundly happen, that's when I would kind of make it more of a story after the first games because it kind of happened even at the double A level as well. If they were called tighter in those games, then it kind of went back to normality. I'm not really tripping over it yet, but I would think they shouldn't worry about that because the game that was the best was the game that was the closest, in my opinion, which was the Kings and Oilers game, which we'll get into. But the other games are 4-0, 5-0, and
Well,
5-1. So, like, I would rather have closer playoff games.
they called a lot of penalties in that LA game, like stuff that they normally wouldn't call either.
Oh, they called a lot of crap. Yeah, they called a lot of crap. There was barely any 5-on-5 play in that game to see who could even prevail in the 5-on-5 because it was what was it like 0 for 6 for one team and 1 for 7 for another or something like that. So, like or like whatever, like it was. Oh no, that was in the Toronto game. But even so, like that just goes to show what you said. It was 0 for 4 for the Kings and 2 for 4 for your Oilers. So like Draisaitl had that beautiful power play goal that no goaltender saving, and Mikey Anderson, I don't know what he was doing on that play, but like the I don't want the playoffs to be like that because the regular season, I like watching the Silky Mitch play and all that, but the playoffs is different. You have to pound guys a little bit more, and that's what I enjoyed about watching the Kelly Cup playoffs this far. Because after the first game, it's still like that down at that level where I don't want it to change at the NHL level and start trickling down to be like that. I like the toughness and gruelness of the
I
playoffs.
don't know. I have a feeling, but we'll see. You'll see. But I have a feeling that they want to sell this repackage. You got to remember, it's all new. We have all new people running the show here when it comes to TV rights and all that stuff like that. And we'll see, we'll see. But I have a feeling they're trying to change things up a little bit. I didn't see the fight last night in the Tampa Bay game because I think it was like, what was it? Did you see that? I saw what? Oh, because I was doing a live stream, but I did see what Clifford did, and I mean that's I don't know. Here's the thing. Okay, why the hell was Clifford in there to begin with? It concerns me, and it would be odd for him to do what he did to who he did if what I'm thinking they had him in there for was for him to do. But I still can't wrap my head around the fact that Clifford was even in the lineup instead of Spezza to begin with. And I think at least at some level, there was sort of you can do some things to hurt them or, put a statement on the series because we don't really care if you play tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. I also think Spezza's obviously the more wily veteran. Clifford does have playoff experience back from his Kings days, and is that we just mentioned how they're not letting you play as much of the stuff, but is kind of that more old school playoff player. So I don't know if I was as surprised as you. He was in the lineup. Who he was in the lineup for, I think, was the bigger
Yeah.
surprise. But like the fact that Clifford was in the lineup in a playoff game doesn't necessarily surprise me that much, just because he is that kind of old school type of playoff player where he might not be in the lineup as much going forward if they are going to call it tighter. But it didn't necessarily shock me from that perspective. It shocked me more the fact that Spezza was out for
Yeah.
him.
Well, and I know. Then he did what he did, and it was. I mean, you know me. I'm fair. I usually try to look at the player side and some things that you know and say that, but
Sometimes,
in this case, I don't understand that play. I mean, the puck was gone. There was no need. It wasn't like he nudged him and then hit him in the wrong way or something. He leaned into him good. No way. There's no way he could have possibly thought that Colton could have saw him or anything. It was a bonehead move, really bonehead move. And the thing is, it's Connor Clifton. Like he gets a 2-game suspension, nobody cares. Like it's like nobody cares. So I think what's going to happen, I think I don't know, maybe a move like that. I think it's. I'm leaning. I'm not going to say it is. So everybody out there, whatever. I don't know anything, of course. Like I'm just a guy. But I'm leaning to the fact that they put Connor Clifton in to do something like that because they want Lightning. They want the Lightning to turn this into sort of a brawl to get their head out of the, just to get their head off of the game. And it worked, right? It worked because the Lightning were shit after that.
yeah, no, I think that's kind of what they tried to throw the Lightning off keel. Where watching this game, I didn't really see. I mean, overall, I didn't really see a lot of, even from the beginning. I thought the Maple Leafs came out pretty good
Yeah,
at home. That just really threw the Lightning off. I thought the Lightning just kind of played like
yeah,
crap.
I agree,
like
but I
I don't think the Lightning played good much in general. Where then you even compounded it by the fact, like, the first period you were able to escape with just the Muzzin goal, and then you had the lone power play goal, where this game was full of power plays, 1 for 6 for Toronto, 0 for 5 for Tampa. So great penalty kill by Toronto was the difference as well, because Comp even scored on the penalty kill. So I think they just didn't play great defensively at all, the Lightning. And then they just kind of let Toronto, like you said, get in their head. So those two things are going to automatically lose you a
right.
playoff game. And Toronto played the much better overall game, I think, two chances wise. Jack Campbell played good when he had to make the huge saves, but he didn't have to make a lot of A-plus saves because they actually played one of their better games at blocking out the front of the net for him. So I think they played probably one of the better games I watched of the Maple Leafs this year, in terms of not making the goaltender have to make a lot of those high quality saves.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was no surprise Toronto was going to come out hard, but um, it like there was fights afterwards and stuff like that, and um, it I really do think that was somewhat set up to do something like that. I really do. I think they want to get Tampa Bay off their game, put their focus in a direction that's not where it needs to be, and I mean, I think even, and that would even be more so if Tampa Bay, which I do believe they do, thought that they did that for that reason. No, so because you got to look at the storyline of this series is, in all honesty, and I should have thought about this more, but I mean it's not over yet. Tampa Bay has gone through two series right now. Won two Stanley Cups, a shortened off season. They took it easy in the regular season, and um, I think Toronto wanted to send a message that are you willing to go here? Like, do you have the energy to go here? Because this is where we're going. This is where we're going right now. And
Yeah,
I have a feeling that Tampa Bay, now that I've already picked Tampa Bay to win the series, for the love of God, I have a feeling that Tampa Bay is going to be like, I don't know. I don't know if we're willing to go there. I don't know if they have them in it to go there. But I think Toronto's got to keep on going there. And if they do, they could win that series. They gotta get that's low down and dirty. Now, Question is, does Tampa have the energy to do that? They got the players to do it. This
Yeah,
could get this could get nasty because if Tampa Bay thinks that they don't have the energy to beat Toronto after all those two ever, they're going to send a message somehow, and you know what that's likely going to be.
yeah. No, I agree, and I think Toronto coming out and putting that physical stamp on is what they needed to do. And I also think E Money and I talked about it in the video on my channel on Sports Fanatic News too that the way the Maple Leafs will beat them is one, obviously Campbell has to play well and stay healthy, and two, they have to have guys step up that look like on the roster they can play with the snarl, but they haven't done it necessarily consistently in the past. But they look like they have guys that can do it, like the Makhayevs and etc. Where everybody did that in the first game, and they won puck battles. Tampa was losing puck battles trying to exit their own zone. You don't see that often. And then when they were able to exit their own zone and enter into the neutral zone, whenever they got into the attacking zone, it was like 1, 2, 3 seconds you would count
Yeah.
by the time the puck was off of their blade going the other way for Toronto. So I think they just played a great overall game, the Maple Leafs, and that's kind of what happened. As to what Lorne said, though, I thought in the first period, Lorne, your spot on Ronta was shaky, and the Canes' defense for the Caniacs really protected him well. After the first, though, I think some of the kick saves he did because they allowed him to adjust almost like a Major League Baseball pitcher. The Bruins let him adjust because they didn't take advantage of scoring on those rebounds. I feel like he did adjust in and actually play very good in the final two, but in the first, I do think you're spot on. He did have those weird saves that he was almost like just sprawling out and hoping it stayed under them as they made those great plays in front. So I definitely agree. Early he was shaky. I do think like a Major League Baseball pitcher does, though. He almost like adjusted as they let him settle in because they didn't take advantage of him early.
Well, they got to get it high on Ranta. Simple as that. They're shooting.
Mm-hmm.
They're shooting low
Mm-hmm.
every single time.
They're shooting for rebounds for
So,
some, which is what the Boston Bruins do. That's their style. Get the
but you can't.
dirty, big
But you
bad
gotta.
Bruins goals, but you
You got
can't
to
do
get
that
it
on
up,
Ronta.
everyone. You got to get it up on Ranta. I mean, Ranta's legs are freaking insane. That's the one. If they're not gonna get the puck, if they're not gonna start getting the puck up on Ranta, this is going to be over pretty quick. Because Ranta
Agree.
doesn't let much down low, no matter how you try it or how quick you try to do it. Even if you get rebounds, he doesn't give up much low. But uh, so yeah, they got to get it up. They have the capability to do it. I mean, Marchand's a beautiful shooter. Pasternak, they have the guys to get it up. Let's face it, though. The first half of the game, Boston outplayed Carolina, and then Alstrom is the big question mark, and he was a question mark. He wasn't able to do what Ranta did early, and they were able to capitalize on it. But
Yeah, especially on that Trocheck goal. Like obviously that was just a great backhand by Trocheck, but at the same time, you need to be hugging your post a little bit better so a guy can't come down and backhand it off of the back of your
oh
mask and
yeah,
into the net. So like that just wasn't a
no,
good job at hugging the post. But this was also one of those games. Boston early in the first had good
oh
push. It's just Lord kind of hit it on the head. They just kind of battled in the front of the net. And yeah, that's pretty funny. They're going deaf because you can't hear in that stadium with the Caniacs. But the they just somehow he was able to make these desperation like saves that the team blocked out, and then they let him settle in late. And then by the time the Canes settled in, that's how they're going to kick your behind. And they had no chance because there's no chance that Allmark was saving the first shot because Jarvis affected it through his legs. I think it was Stahl blocked him out for the second shot. He couldn't even see it. The Niederreiter snipe and then Tieravainen, it went off of a shin pad. He didn't play a great overall game. He didn't look locked in at all, but the only goal that I would say was 100% on him was Trocheck's because you just can't. You have to make sure you hug the post enough and keep yourself upright enough that somebody can't bank it off of the back of
yeah,
you and in.
but Ranta stopped a lot of pucks that you would, if they went in, you would say, well, you can't give that to Ranta. That's the whole thing, right? Like he was stopping
Mm-hmm.
more pucks that you would say if they went in, you can't put that on Ranta, but he was stopping them anyways. And that's really what it's all about with goaltending, right? Like you can always say, well, you can't put that on him, but the great goaltenders stop a lot of those, and he didn't really do that. In a lot of ways, at least for the first half. But yeah, Boston played well. But one thing Boston wasn't doing that I thought, you could correct me if I'm wrong, was uh, they didn't they weren't getting to the dirty areas like they normally do. There were a lot of those shots. A
That's
lot of
true.
those shots were perimeter and stuff like that. Boston ain't beating Carolina like that. They got to turn this into a freaking war. That is what Boston does, and that's what they got to do. And if they, that's it. Because Carolina is a mechanic, like a machine. They're if
Hmm.
you give them the opportunity to, if you take the emotion out of the game, and you don't do things that are going to rile them and feel like they got to protect their teammates and stuff like that, they'll roll over you. They will. Boston's not going to be able to keep up with the mechanics of Carolina. They're not. They don't have they don't have. They might have the system, but they don't have the players to do that. So
Agreed. Yeah. That's kind of what Doug said. Doug Master in the chat. The Canes just have the better overall talent ceiling, and that's kind of true. That's true. Where that's why what you just said, they have to beat them in the war, in the brute battle, in the big bad Bruin style. Otherwise, they're not going to have a chance. And they have to do the other secondary thing that Lorne said. They have to control the neutral zone. If Boston's a team that doesn't control the neutral zone, they lost already, because they win by being the big bad, dirty but good goals and controlling the damn neutral
right.
zone. If they don't do that, they're done. They're toast. Those are the two biggest keys to the Boston Bruins, and getting the most out of a roster that isn't the sexiest through and through on paper, like Doug was hinting at, but still got the most out of it in the regular season. It was because of those two things being big factors, and that did not come to fruition. Minus that the neutral zone thing did at the beginning of the game, but then after the first 10 minutes, none of that came to fruition. And like you said, they got too many outside shots. So you have to be able to get the better shots and block out Antti Ranta. If he can see the puck, and with the great net front defense of being able to block and pound guys out that Carolina has, even if he lets one get behind him like yesterday, they're going to be able to stop those to make sure that it gets blocked right under him, and they get
Yeah,
the
I
whistle.
would think early in the next game, I would hope, if I mean, well, I think you kind of have to. They got every when they get the puck most of the time at first, is they got to drive to the net. They got to make Ranta work. Like Ranta didn't have to work. He's a reflex goaltender, and it doesn't hurt him to stop shots all day, especially low, right? Doesn't hurt him to do that at all. But Ranta is known to wear down. So if you take the puck hard on him and you bowl him over a couple times and you get him so his heart rate's going because you can't see the puck and all that stuff like that, Ranta will wear down. But if you don't do it, he will stop you all day long. The reason why I was leaning Boston in the series, although I thought it was pretty much a coin flip, was I thought they were going to do that. But after seeing what I saw last night, I'm I think if they keep on playing like that, this will be easy. Carolina will win in 5. They're not gonna win like that.
No, yeah, I think I'm trying to see. What I took Canes because I thought it was E Money took B's in 6. I took Canes in 6. But if Boston plays like they did yesterday, then I could easily see it jumping a game and them only taking one game in this series.
Yeah.
But if they play more like the Bruins, I could see it going 6 still. But it depends. It depends Boston's adjustments um, going forward in this series, as some were saying in the chat and have we been saying as well.
I think they got a. Who do they have playing second line C right now? Holla, right?
Paula, yeah, because
Yeah.
Jordan
I
Stahl has been
I
consistently, for the
I
most
would
part,
bring
playing great C.
Charlie Coyle up there. Not necessarily because he's going to get you points, but Charlie Coyle doesn't know anything else but to take the puck to the net.
Yeah, be a hard nosed player. Yeah.
That's where I would have him there. And then, let me look. I think maybe you might see that actually. Hall is a gamer, but he's more of a corner guy. He's not really a drive to the
Mm-hmm.
net guy. He's more of a get it out of the corners and get it out to someone, which I can understand with a guy like Hall playing on your line, right? But um, I think what they really need to do, they need to make Ranta work hard because he's not what you call a high stamina goaltender.
No,
That's their biggest weakness.
and that's
Right?
why he's a backup.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why.
So yeah, I'd put Charlie Coyle. Yeah, then you got Pasternak and Hall. I think that's the better way to go there. Pasternak is sitting out there waiting. The thing is though, I understand.
And also, it's been actually. I just realized it was for in here. It's been I said that wrong. It's they have Trocheck at second C, so it's Domi, Trocheck, and Tiravinen is who they had there.
Yeah,
So that's what they had as the second C line,
yeah.
and then Jordan Stahl was still in the third line. They didn't even have Eric Holla.
Oh,
So
really? Who did they have in the second C? Sorry, it was Carolina. There's Carolina's.
because Holla,
Yeah.
yeah, Carolina's Trocheck. Yeah, they had they and then so they had second C because on here it says unless if hold on let me go to Cap Friendly because this could be
Cap
wrong.
Friendly has Holla as a second line center.
Okay, because Roto World had it as Charlie Coyle already.
Well, maybe
So
see.
unless if they're
No, that's
maybe it
Roto
adjusted.
World adjusts fast. I think that's what's happened. Is Charlie Coyle's going to go up there, like I was just saying. I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay,
So
yeah, because I was gonna say Roto World put it as Coyle, so maybe that's because they adjusted it. But I think that would make sense too, because Coyle would match up better with trying to block out Vincent Trocheck from being able to do the things he did yesterday, being able to get to the net front and getting along the boards, where Eric Holla, as you said, can't do any of that.
you
So,
can't have Trocheck outdo you. I mean, in the playoffs, Trocheck.
which he did.
Yeah, exactly. Trocheck
Yeah.
Trocheck has been ass in the playoffs the last 2 years. I mean, you can't have him outdoing you out there. There's no way. So, I honestly, this is the way I saw that game. I thought Boston did really well considering they weren't playing the way they needed to in the first half. I still thought, I was actually kind of surprised they were able to play like that and dominating Carolina parts of the game the way they did. But if they get back to what they really did, but the problem with playing like that, like I said, is that if you don't wear down Ranta, he's freaking awesome. But as soon as if you wear him down, he slides real fast. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I also agree with what Lorne said for Boston's best. I feel like even though Allmark wasn't the only reason they lost, obviously, but he didn't look the most zoned in. I understand why they went with the league veteran in game one, not a playoff veteran. Neither of them really had playoff experience. Obviously, one was on Buffalo and one's a new goalie to the league. But I would go with Swayman in game two, too, because I feel like Jeremy Swayman, just from watching a lot of both of them as goaltenders, I like Allmark, but I feel like Swayman makes some saves that Linus Allmark can't make just because, one, he's also uh, not the not the like Allmark I think relies on his quickness more than he relies on always being the most structured. Like being structured would have been being able to hug the post better and have all that. Where I think Swayman's a very quick goalie, but is also a little bit more structured than Linus Allmark. And I feel like even though he's younger, the best bet for the playoffs is having your more structured goaltender in net rather than somebody that relies more on their quick reflexes, which I feel like is what is the type of goaltender Linus Allmark is.
Allmark is almost the same as Ranta. He's tough to beat low. You just go high. You go high. You go high on
Yeah, and
Allmark.
they did. And they did, other than the deflection. The deflection goal, you're not stopping.
Yeah.
Anybody's not stopping that through the wickets. But for the most part, they did try to aim high on him.
He shouldn't be tough to beat high. He's 6'4" for frick's sakes. But he crouches down to lows, and his side to side isn't the greatest either. But his size is what he uses to get from side to side. And when he does it crouched, so he's susceptible up high. Uh, where Swayman's borderline old school. Like he stays up on his feet a lot more than Allmark does. So
Yeah. he also uses, because they're both about 6'4". Swayman's like 6'3", but like
He's a big boy too.
he uses his size more to his advantage because of what you just said. He stands up and goes down when he has to. Allmark's more of that straight line butterfly guy, where I think eventually, I feel like, because he had a very solid season this year. Don't get me wrong, Allmark. I'm not trying to down him, but Swayman, I feel like if he can take it and handle the pressure as a kid, might fit as a goaltender the way he plays the game a little bit better than Allmark in the postseason. Because until somebody kind of preaches him as a goalie coach, and you can't do that in the postseason, stand upright a little bit more. I feel like that's what's going to make him, from having this very good season with the Bruins this year, to being a guy that you're going to say, okay, this guy can definitely be a starter and not this platoon guy with a very good young goaltender. So I think that's the difference there. And that's kind of why I agree with some of the people in the chat, where especially Lauren said, yeah, I expect Swayman to go in game 2. I would expect it too, but we'll have to see if Bruce Cassidy decides to roll with the guy that's been in the league longer, or if he goes with Jeremy
Well,
Swayman.
it's a mental aspect of being as young as he is, because I mean, skill wise, Swayman's a better goaltender. It's just more mature mentally. Maybe a little less to lose in your own mind and stuff like that. I'm not. That's one thing I don't know about certain goaltenders, where they are, and you have to watch them, how they've been in certain situations mentally and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Any young goaltender like him or Spencer Knight or anything, they're monsters mentally just to be where they're at. But now you're talking about a whole new level. You're talking about first game, on the road in that Carolina. It's, I don't care who you are. That can be jittery. So maybe they thought Allmark might have been better, more like a little more mature for that, I guess, or whatever. I don't know, but hard for me to say.
It makes sense.
Hard for me to say, like, to say what Cassidy's a great. He knows his goaltenders better than I ever would. And they got goaltending coaches and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. I think, you know what I think it was though. This is what I think it was though. This is for me what I think it is. You put Allmark in, and if Carolina doesn't figure him out early, and they seem to not be able to find his holes or whatever, or I don't know, sometimes goaltenders just go out of their heads or something like that, right? Then they keep on rolling with them, right? And Allmark mentally could probably handle, like, it's better for Allmark's already gone through the development now, where if you put Swayman in and he has a rough one, that could be a little tough on them. You know what I mean? A kid like that, and then you're putting Allmark in. So now you're putting Swayman in after Allmark had a little bit of a rough one. Maybe he feels like super confident. Also, it makes, but if it was the first game and you didn't have a great one, and then you put Allmark in, that can be a little hard on mentally for a kid.
Yeah, it makes sense from that perspective. It also just makes sense. I think a lot of teams, like the biggest example I like to give is when Rittich was having the better season a couple years ago, Calgary, but Calgary still went with Mike Smith because Mike Smith is a well more experienced goaltender. Now it's different here because Allmark doesn't have the playoff experience either. Same with Swayman, but Swayman isn't experienced in the league. Allmark's been around the league, and this year actually stayed healthier, which has been a big concern for him in the past as well. So I think he deserved, as a veteran status, getting the first start, but I do think since he didn't do anything to wow you in the first start, I would, for all the reasons you said as well, go with Swayman in game 2 from everything we said here and everything everyone's been saying in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know. Healthy Anderson. Yeah. I mean, I've been, okay. It's, it's, it's really tough to say how many goaltenders with Carolina's defense would look like. I've said that Anderson's like a top 7 goaltender in the NHL. Talking here with Lauren, but actually, after I think about it over and over again, it's really hard to justify that because maybe he is, but I think his numbers
I
would.
feel like you could because when healthy in Montreal, or not Montreal, when in healthy in Toronto, he did make saves for that team where he would have 45 save games and have
Yeah,
because their defense was crap. So I feel like if you go from that to now, you could justify it from his career
yeah. I don't.
resume when
I just.
healthy.
I just don't think he is what he was then. He's not that
Well,
good.
no,
He's
but
not that.
nobody is in their 30s
Yeah,
necessarily
he's just
to,
not that.
other than if you're Jacob Markstrom.
He's not that good anymore. He's a good a very good goaltender. I thought like top 7, but I had those pictures in my mind of Anderson in Toronto stopping 45 shots. If you put Anderson back in Toronto right now, I don't think he'd be all that much better than Campbell.
Well, I don't think Campbell's had a bad year. I just think Campbell's got screwed over because he's had the same issues he had in his entire career, which he'll get on a roll, get banged up, and then have to get back on a roll because he got back. Where he was healthier than usual this year, had a good first game, but still did get banged up a little bit, and they had to have Calgren, of course, play some. I
Yeah.
think if he can continue on that route, I was fine with Jack Campbell's
I just think
season
okay,
this
let's put it
year.
this way. If you put Jack Campbell in Carolina, his numbers would be as good as Anderson's. They would both be. They're both equal to each other. And now I don't think that.
Yeah, but I also we shouldn't discount a goalie because he's on a team that does a great job
I
at
don't. But if you are,
building their
if
entire
you're on that team and you're a top 7, like say you threw Gibson in Carolina, he's gonna have like a 2.200 and a .94. Like
Oh yeah. If you
that's what
throw
I'm
one of the
trying to
best
say.
goalies,
That's what I'm saying. So if we're gonna put Anderson in the top 7, and I earlier said that I said that here that he was a top 7 goaltender. But as the season's gone on, I have thought otherwise. I thought, you know what, I was thinking I had the pictures of him stopping 45 shots in Toronto dancing in my head. I don't think Anderson is that anymore. Is
we don't really know though because he doesn't have to do it. We would have to see, which I don't think we're going to. If he comes back, we would have to see Carolina kind of play this odd, more offensive, aggressive game that they don't play as good defensively, and then you would have your sample size there because we haven't really had the sample size to necessarily go off. If it's like this year with Kemper. Kemper, after adjusting to his new team, has had a heck of a season for Colorado. He's one of my favorite
yeah,
goalies. You can't really say if he's the same as he was in Arizona or not because he hasn't had to stop 50 shots in certain
yeah.
games like he's had to in Arizona because they've had a very solid defense as well. Not to the level of Carolina's, but still a very solid defense. So I think that's why there's like two sides of it, but I get what you're saying. It's just hard to judge
I,
goalies when they are in those
I don't
systems,
know.
but I also try not to discount them because they're in those great
I don't
systems.
know if Colorado. I think they have very similar defense to Carolina. Um,
Oh yeah, they just don't have the same like when they had the injury issues this year. They had like the John. Now Jack Johnson played a great season. Don't get me wrong, but you had like him, those guys really stepping up for you. That the names don't pop off in your head as
well,
much
look
as
at
Carolina's.
Carolina.
That's
They
all
had
it was.
Cole and Smith in there. I mean, their
That's a
top
good point.
4 is insane, but their 5-6 is yeah. But Colorado and
Well, Ian Cole did play very
he plays as good as he can for his age. I mean, he's a 5-6, no doubt about
as a
that.
three, as a third line. Yeah, he's nothing above
Yeah,
that, but he's filling his
yeah, he
role
fills his role
nicely.
all right. I mean, I would say Smith probably will be out of the league next year, and he's been in there. And Bear, he struggled more than I thought he was. I don't know that thought he would there, but um, yeah, it's they both have very similar. I think Carolina gets more out of what they have than Colorado does. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I also think Colorado's best defense is what they have it set up now. Because, like I said, you had Jack Johnson playing a lot of games. Mackner made out a career year for you, and could be a guy, or McDermott, excuse me, who could be a guy that's also good in the playoffs. Eric Johnson and Byram together. Byram obviously now healthy. That's another dimension added to you, ending out the regular season and into the postseason. I think they have Gerard Manson, Taze McCarr, Byram Johnson. I think Eric Johnson. That's their best pairings now that they don't have to overplay. Now, both Jack Johnson and Curtis McDermott played good this year, but they don't have to overplay them per se and worry about those guys really stepping up in the playoffs. Like after the first round, the Kings are going to have to worry about because they have a lot of young guys that really have to step up, which is different than this. But this team had a lot of veterans that you never really expected to have to step up at this point of the career for Jack Johnson or for McDermott ever, where he was able to really do it for him, where McDermott was always more of a seventh defenseman and he was able to step up for them this year.
Yeah. No, they got. I mean, yeah. Anyways, we'll go more into that. Like Devon Tays is just. It was funny when I was talking back in the day that the Toronto trading Marner before they signed him, and everybody lost their mind. I'm like, you're going to give this guy $11 million a year after you brought
Yeah.
Tavares in. You know what? And look at the situation that they're in. Although they're doing all right now, but I had him going to the Islanders, and Taves was one of the guys that I had in there, and people were like, "Why would they take a guy like Taves?" I'm like, "Well, you watch, you watch why they would take a guy like Taves. He's a 1-2. The guy's a beast. Playing with Makar, that is an amazing combination." All right, well, let's look at. Okay, so we talked about Toronto, we talked about Carolina. Uh, the one that everybody is all excited about, and I've been back and forth on. I'll tell you what, the Minnesota St. Louis series. My biggest concern was Minnesota down the middle against, Shen, uh, O'Reilly, and who am I missing there that they have up the middle? Oh, the kid.
Um, no, Barbashev's on the wing.
The kid had a breakout year
Um,
this year. Uh,
Thomas.
Thomas, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, Robert
that was my
Thomas. Yeah.
biggest issue with Minnesota is like I believe that in the playoffs, strength up the middle is almost, if not even more important than defense. Having strength,
Well, also your strength up the middle tends to help your overall team defense
yeah, that's
too.
right.
So that's a big part.
Yeah. You put a
Yeah.
lot of pressure on your defense if your centers are not, top notch, and that was my issue. And I think really it came out last night quite a bit. They controlled a lot of the play last night uh, from the center position that Minnesota wasn't able to really do anything about. But Minnesota did take some bad penalties, but they got chasing.
That's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
but that's because they got chasing, and St. Louis was just, you know, you know, Berube, commando, right? Like when Berube's style is pretty simple. We're going out to play rugby with a puck. That's what he does. And
Oh yeah.
and Minnesota is a puck possession, pass the puck around, no. Like it's contrasting styles, and well, St. Louis certainly, and of course, I mean Minnesota didn't play that horrible. Husso was off the freaking chain last night, right?
Yeah, Huso was really good last night, which is the thing that was a big reason why I picked Minnesota in 7 instead of the Blues when I did my thing with E Money because not that I think Billy Huso's not a great goalie. I do think he's really established himself this year. The problem is he has no. Bennington was the guy at the helm the last time. He doesn't have the playoff experience. But to see what he did in game one, especially on the road, yeah, that definitely makes me think that I might have to reevaluate that. But I don't do any of that after the first game because if Minnesota comes out and smacks them in game two, then I'm going to be going back and forth. So I don't ever reevaluate anything that
Yeah.
quickly. But it is it definitely was a great first game. He did also get helped out by a couple posts on the Jacob Middleton when he came in on the play and hit the post, and Joel Eriksson Ek on the nice entry into the zone hit the post. So I saw this game a little bit differently. I thought the Blues played a great round and pound their style of play, but I also thought the Wild did compete with them fairly well. It's
Yeah.
just they weren't able to defend them. Like they let David Perron be the puck hound he was and get 2 opportunities to slam a rebound. And you can't do that. You actually 3 opportunities to get one in, I should say, because he ended up scoring the yeah, two, no, yeah, three, yeah, so yeah, he had all three, he had 3 goals to score the hat trick, and then Ryan O'Reilly had the beautiful wrist shot. Like you kind of had breakdowns in the defensive zone, and a lot of them were on rebounds, where that was my big issue. Where I think in the offensive zone, they generated the chances and they had enough chances. The Wild, their problem was they allowed the puck count of David Perron to get the 2 power play goals and then end his hat trick night with that wrist shot that he got from Sod and Krug. So I think he was murdering them all night. You got to be able to stop him as the puck count, and he had a killer season. And then you also obviously have to block out your net front better for your goaltender, whether it's Fleury or whether it's Talbot in there. I also don't think Fleury looked the sharpest. He looked a little bit out of sorts in the game just from watching, where it didn't look like he looked as zoned in as you would expect Marc-Andre Fleury to look. So I think the Blues played a great game. I do think the Wild played a better game than some gave them credit for, though, because I think in the offensive zone they generated a lot of chances. It's just Husso played great, like you said, and also got 2 posts that helped them out as well.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised they put Fleury in because he didn't look good in Minnesota since his time was there. He hadn't. But on the same note, I kind of get it. If they really have a chance, the best chance they have is Fleury being Fleury. That's the best chance they have. Talbot at his very best doesn't give you as good of a chance as Fleury at his very best. And so I kind of get it. I don't know if they're going to go back to Talbot here. I think that might be a mistake too. Like you picked him, you go with him, whatever. But I mean, he didn't look that. He hasn't looked Fleury like since he went to Minnesota.
No, he's only had a couple games that he's actually looked fairly, and it hasn't even been Fleury like. It's been more he's looked really good in them, but not to the level you would expect a Hall of Fame goaltender to. But he's also 37, so maybe this is just we don't know. This could be. He said he wants to play one more year already after this, so we know that. But that could be the final season after that. So we'll have to see what is the future ahead for him.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, you got a genius coach like Dean Evison there. I'm sure he's got some tricks up his sleeve here. They say they got to see him one time. St. Louis,
Oh
St.
yeah,
Louis is kind of a one, not really a one-trick pony, but I mean, they're not a team that's going to slip into a trap or they've got one kind of way to do it. It's just really good. They won a cup with it. It's still there. Berube has one way, and he's able to get his players to do it very, 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 very well. And it's hard to defend, but if somebody can do it, if somebody can change things up, and kind of put them back on their rears again, it's probably Evison. I mean, Evison look what he did to Vegas that 1 year.
Yeah, you have a battle of 2 coaches that should always usually be in the Jack Adams conversation.
Yeah, it's just like Lawrence says that Minnesota's gonna frustrate O'Reilly, but the issue I understand what he's saying. Again, I keep on going back to the fact that I look at that center position for them, and it's just I don't, as much as they may try, they're probably not going to make it. Eck is going to have to go out of his head in this series. I really think this is going to have to be like his.
I do think he actually played a great first game, though. I just think he was honestly, while watching, to me, one of the most impressive skaters for Minnesota. It's just they couldn't get anything done. They got Ville Husso was great, but he looked good to me. I think the bigger concern is because Eriksson Ek I more expect to play well. Freddie Gaudreau emerged this season from being a journeyman into actually being a good, consistent center for the Wild to fill out his role. He's nothing special, but he filled out his role. If Eriksson Ek keeps playing well, you can move him up to 2C and Gaudreau down, but you have to be able to continue to have a guy like him play well because Yost is a guy that plays fine in the defensive zone. Still, you're waiting to see more offensively. If you don't have Gaudreau, who played very good defensively for you this year as well with the Eriksson Ek, that's going to be an issue because Hartman, obviously, that first line, you think you're going to get good stuff from. And I thought the Ek line was honestly the second best line in the game. I thought the second line left a lot to be desired. Now, one guy is in his first playoff game, Matthew Boldy, so that's excused. Yeah. But you had Fiala and Gaudreau as the other 2 line mates. I thought that second line didn't really do much of anything.
Well, it's a pretty green line, yeah. I mean, as far as like playoff experience, and of course, Boldy is as green as you can get. but over on the other side of things, uh, you had you, having rookies like that. Like if you're going to win a cup, almost always every cup winner has a rookie like that just goes off, or like he handles it very very well. So like if you look at the Carolina series, Jarvis played extremely well last night,
Yeah.
right? So that was a rookie, and then but I mean Jarvis has a little more experience than Boldy. That's a lot to ask from really just a kid for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Doug Master does make a good point with the experience, the power play, the penalty kill, because this wasn't necessarily the best night for power play, other than the fact that the Blues were actually solid at 2 for 6. Most other teams were 1 for whatever, and you had 0 for 6, so the fantastic penalty kill from the Blues. So that's also a contributing factor where Huso was one of the best penalty killers out there, but the penalty kill as a whole was blocking shots. So we have to throw that in there as well.
Yeah, how come I can't find Mini here? Oh yeah, here we are. Yeah, see
And
Hartman, Zuccarello, that like he doesn't even have a line, and this team is really, except for that line that you said is their best line, Greenway, Erickson, Foligno, like that's a fantastic third line. But besides that, it's a pretty light lineup. Fiala, Goudreau, even Hartman plays his bag off, but I mean,
Well, that first line was one of the better first lines in the regular season. The problem is they're very green. Well, Zuccarello does have playoff experience, I'm pretty sure. But the Kaprizov and Hartman, they're green for being able to play those roles in the postseason. And Zuccarello is on a first line. So it's about can they carry that into the postseason because it's the first postseason of Hartman's career that he's in this big of a role. It's the first postseason of Kaprizov's career that the Wild are favorites to some. And then you got Zuccarello, who's usually not a first liner, but he's really stepped up in that facet this year. So I agree that the Blues have the more deep lineup. The sole reason I picked the Wild when I did the series picks with E-Money wasn't had anything to do with that. It was the fact that I believed in their goaltending a bit more because of Fleury's playoff experience, and I thought Talbot, the duo they had together to match, would be better because Bennington was just so bad this year, other than in select few games. And I like Jordan Bennington and hope he bounces back, but this year ain't it for him. That if Huso didn't click, they were going to be in deep trouble. But now that it looks like that might be the case, I might revise that going forward after like game 3,
yeah,
but I don't change anything at the
I just
beginning.
think they have too many of the same type of players. Kevin Fiala, Zuccarello. They're just little.
They
They're
do have a
little. They're
lot of
little. They're
similarity.
little jitterbugs. But I mean, that doesn't translate usually all that well into the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, Kaprizov's going to have to go off. There's a lot that's going to have to go here. I don't know why I went back and forth so much on this. I think I let people get in my head. I St. Louis is probably going to win that for sure. CL, how you doing?
Yeah, I still am not sold on that after one game, but we'll have to see. Because, like I said, I thought the Wild did great in the offensive zone, in my opinion. I just thought they sucked at times in the
Yeah,
defensive
it's not
zone, which
really
is
about the game
what
because it's only one
and they
game.
weren't good on the PK either because they gave them too many penalties and their power play was shot. So, like, you have to be able to factor all that in too. But the Rangers, Bill's asking me about the Rangers, and with their ways with the Panthers. I do think the Rangers will beat Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure I picked. Let me see what I had. I had the Rangers in 5 over Pitt, so I do
Oh,
think the
really?
Rangers will beat.
5. Wow. Just dismiss.
The probably well, Yari. Yeah, I don't think this Smith's a backup goaltender, so unless if he plays like Antti Ranta, and he doesn't have the experience of Antti Ranta either as a backup goaltender. He was a late bloomer in his mid to late 20s, becoming a backup. So I think depending how he plays, because obviously Louis Domingue's not going to do
No.
anything for you in the NHL postseason. In the AHL postseason, sure. But so I think that's a big thing for me. Shesterkin's the Vezina winner. If New York does slouch on defense in a game, Shesterkin's just going to piggyback them off of his back, and they're going to be fine anyway. So I think that's why I kind of took them in 5. I do think the Penguins have the veteran status to win at least a game because they have the Malkins, they have the Letangs, they have the Crosbys. Kapanen's kind of that dark horse wild card player if he can get going, to see what he can do in the playoffs. So they do have a chance to push it to 6. I just say 5 because depending when Yori comes back, if they're already down 2-0, I don't know if they're going to be able to make that up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. It's really all about the Smith. You got the veteran experience of Pittsburgh, of course. They're going to find some ways. I'm just always wary of taking a green team like the Rangers in situations, but with Shesterkin back there, I think they could get outplayed and still win often enough that they win the series. So I'm taking the Rangers for sure. Yeah, maybe 6. Yeah, that sounds about right. Uh,
Yeah, I said 5 just because I don't think the goaltending matchup play. The way the Rangers play, too, is they are going to out finesse you and out quick you. They're going to, where the Penguins, to me, at this point of their careers, unless if Kapanen steps up, Gensel's played great this year. That first line's going to keep up with them through and through. And the second line, for the most part, other than maybe Malkin consistently skating at this point of his career with them. But my whole thing with what's going to be an issue, you have the Rangers of guys like Kreider, who scores most of his goals in the net front, basically all 50 of his 52. That's over exaggerating, but like he's such a great net front presence. So is Vetrano. I think they're going to block him out. Then you have the silky mitts guys of Panarin, of Lafreniere. Kako could have a coming out party in the postseason. You never know. So he's a young guy that you just mentioned, youngsters that can kind of emerge and really help a team. Lafreniere has started doing really good in the second half and is probably going to continue going that way. And Goodrow is a good experience add. Reeves is a good experience add. So I think they added some of the good experience in there. Nemeth is a give or take defenseman, but at least has experience from around the league there. And Trouba was ended up being a guy that they paid a lot, but actually in the end did end up being a good ad for the Rangers. So I think the Pittsburgh Penguins have the more experience, but in this series, it's just there's a certain time where I think, like, I picked them to make the playoffs, like we said at the beginning of the season, but then I was going to assess in the postseason who their opponent was and how far they would go. I don't think they're going to go past this round just because I think they matched up against the buzzsaw of the Rangers offense, where unless if Matheson's and Rue Riedel's line continues to play great like it did in the regular season, I like the Rangers 3D defense more than I like the Penguins 3D defense because also Nemeth's not the best, but you can take Nemeth out because you have Lundqvist, who's a young guy that's played well for you. Say he steps up in the playoffs as a defenseman. You also have Justin Braun, so it's not like Patrick Nemeth has to be in. So, like, and he's a guy that also is a guy that might do better in the playoffs than regular season because he's a box out guy that knocks people off of the puck and not a fast skater. So you have to see what you get from him. That compounded with Yori's health is kind of why I don't expect Pittsburgh to be the greatest because I think they're just going to be able to push them offensively, and they're going to be able to push the Penguins in the offensive zone, and that's just they're going to get worn out a little bit, and that's how the Rangers are going to be able to beat them. And then if they have a game that they kind of don't play a great overall game, like you said, they can be the land of opportunity, and because of Shesterkin just score with like 20 shots to Pittsburgh's 42 shots because of a great game that Shesterkin might play. So I feel like I like the Penguins, and that's why I picked them to make the playoffs this year. I don't like them as a team as a fan, but I like the roster to pick them enough to make it. And Raquel coming in was a huge pickup. It's just for me, I don't think they matched up against the right team. This team has more skating speed than them, and they have more, I think, overall skill, honestly, than Pittsburgh at this point, which is weird to say for a Pittsburgh Penguins team. But when it comes to the Rangers, they just don't have the experience. So will the experience beat the unexperienced? Who knows? That does happen sometimes, but I do think Pittsburgh's going to have to play stellar defense when they've played very good defense this year. They're going to have to tighten it up like Carolina. and like potentially Colorado does because they have their backup goaltender, albeit a very good backup that's developed into a great backup, but he's still a backup
Hey,
goaltender.
Elliot, how you doing, bud? Uh, yeah, yeah. And again, it's just savvy against can always win over, but I still got the Rangers regardless. We got to talk about the Edmonton game with LA, and it was my biggest fear that like if when I did the video I did about LA is, I mean, McClellan's a bright coach, and you don't even have to be a bright coach to know that the way you beat Edmonton is you get the puck in behind the net. And if you look at all their goals, it came from in behind the net. Edmonton doesn't know how to play behind it. Does not have the uh, players to defensemen to play from behind the net. And if you go out, if you do it, you're going to beat them. They did it. I don't. I said Oilers in 7, and I really it was a heart pick. My head doesn't think that Edmonton's winning that series. Didn't from the beginning.
Yeah, well, I think you hit it on the head. I know in a past video and stuff I watched, you mentioned how Kulak is kind of the lone guy, where Bouchard's a guy that's great in the offensive zone, still learning overall play. I'm not going to blame him for not being fantastic at being great behind the net at the age of 22. He can still become that. But you have other guys that, first of all, on the one play, I don't know what Cody Cece was doing when he basically just let, I believe it was for yeah, it was for the Dano goal, and Dano was able that when they had that weird play, and then I think it was CC in front that was trying to get back to Dano, and he basically just let him set up in front for the deflection. But either way, there was just not good. It was behind the net defense, but also your guys' net front defense, where they kind of just let people come in and park up there. I think that was my concern for the Oilers going in, which is why I didn't pick the Oilers. And I think somebody asked that in the chat earlier. I picked the Kings in 5 games because or the Kings in 6 games, excuse me, because I just didn't like the overall defensive play. You just hit on that. Duncan Keith made a couple of nice passes in the game, but that's what he's known for, obviously. So, like, he did what you expect Duncan Keith to do, but now you got to see him. Like, the only way you're going to get good stuff there is if you see a Duncan Keith that we don't see anymore. It did make sense though to go with the extra defenseman if you're the Oilers. I think that actually did make sense to me because you have to have, like you said, the best defense as possible, and Chris Russell adds the shot blocking factor and all that. But obviously, it didn't work out in Game 1 per se. But I mean, this was a game I also think the goaltending kind of like Trevor Moore. That was just a beautiful snipe. There's not much you could obviously do there. The Iafallo goal was really good, but obviously that last goal, that and the Brendan Lemieux goal, Mike Smith had one back. Lemieux just fired that low and got it past him, and the Dano goal, that those were both on Smith. So I think the goaltending also did them in. Somebody I did want to ask you about though, Pearlo, since I've watched a good bit of the Oilers this year, but you're a diehard, so obviously you watched a lot of them. One of the people in one of the groups I am with the Oilers talked about how bad Puljujarvi has been and how much of a liability he's going to be in the playoffs. What have you thought of Jesse Puljujarvi?
First of all, you couldn't hear me. I hope that my volume's not having a problem again. Jeez. Okay. Well, for, Pulley Harvey's been fine. The only problem with Pulley Harvey is uh, people. He's defensively he's fantastic. His problem is being able to get his shot off fast enough. His offensive instincts for getting the shot off is really the biggest issue. He's also a lumbering type skater, so um, it looks like he's not doing anything. Like these people are eye test people, but if you actually watch what he does away from the puck and all of those sort of things like that, he's one of those guys that are sneaky. I can't
Yeah,
bring the volume up anymore. I'm having the same problem with my volume again.
I'm here. I still hear you
Yeah, I
fine
know. It's
through
not
my
that.
end.
That happens every time I have somebody on a stream. Oh, I hear it on my phone fine.
Yeah, I still hear it fine because I put the volume on the stream and you sound fine.
What's going on? Why is that? Why can they not hear it? How is everybody having a problem hearing me out there? because my phone seems fine. But anyways, yeah, he gets ripped for no reason. It's just people who they don't see how to explain it. They don't they a lot of people that just don't know how to look at the game. That's it. It's simple as that. They only
Well,
they
they don't see the small things.
yeah,
It's
they
like
don't see the
Flyers
small
fans
things.
sometimes when in the early years they used to rip Lawton, and then everybody fell in love with Lawton for the same reasons they used to rip him for. So it was like it's kind of one of those things where the same things might have. Well, I don't see it with a lot of Oilers fans. I see a lot of stuff from following the groups. People seem to see it more like you, but that one guy did kind of go on one of those just rants when I posted my I think it was the regular season recap I did on the Oilers. He was like, "Oh, well, Pajori's been a liability in the second half of the season." Where maybe he's not a one-line center, but the reason he's on there is, or not center, winger. The reason he's on there is because of the winning the puck battles for McDavid's of the world. It's not because he's this sexy offensive component that's going to do it all. He doesn't have to do that because he has Connor McDavid if he wins the puck battle.
Yeah. The
So
other problem is he gets down on himself too much, and then
yeah,
he
that's kind of what he said too in the comments. That's what that guy, you hit it on the head. He said he kind of gets in his head, doesn't have the best confidence. A brilliantly funny kid that it seems like he really likes. He just wants to see him do better. It
yeah.
seems like that's kind of the gist I got from that
I
fan.
think when it all comes down to it, I think they're going to end up trading him, and I think it's too bad. Uh, I think he would be better off in a organization like he's a kind of kid that doesn't take the noise well. Simple as that. And I don't know how you train that into somebody to let the noise fly off, but I don't think he takes the noise well. But I don't think that has anything to do with his overall play. He's still a great two-way forward. It has to do with him being out, the way he plays offensively, as far as getting his shots off fast, shooting to the corners. That's all
Yeah,
confidence stuff, right? Picking corners. You see when teams are out of the playoffs and stuff, and all of a sudden they're picking corners like crazy, and they're wondering where was this all year. Well, where was that is you were thinking too much because you're thinking about making it, and now that you can just go out and play and it don't matter, you can pick corners all day long.
yeah. I would go on Streamlabs and up your volume because it's fine when I'm hearing you, but on here I did put the YouTube and like I can hear you. It's just I have headphones
I
in
have the volume up on my Streamlabs.
because you can hear you, but like I sound like I'm actually talking through the podcast mic. You sound like you're talking through like your computer mic or something because it's pretty low compared to mine.
Yeah, this is the same problem that was happening before.
Well, I can hear you, but that's because I have headphones in. Well, I understand why Trent might he might have headphones in,
Yeah,
but he might not have the
this is the
magnifier.
exact same problem I was having before. It's the exact same problem.
Unless if it's also the input in your computer settings, make sure your mic
Oh yeah,
input's also turned all
it's
the way
up.
on
I know it
there.
is, but I'll go check it, but I know it is. It's the same problem. I don't know why when I have somebody else on.
But while you're doing that, I will answer Bill's question. My thoughts on Dallas. I did a video on Rick Bowness being a coach that I think is under talked about just because he plays a good defensive style that gets the most out of his team. It's just on paper, you don't always see it because their team just they have a couple guys like Jamie Benn who's trying to do his best but isn't the same he used to be, obviously. So you're getting the most out of those guys. Ben's more of just a offensive zone bruiser now than he's able to do a lot in the defensive zone. Sagan didn't have the best season, but he was able to at least get him to get to do stuff in the offensive zone. So I think Bonus literally got that team just to play the style that got them to the playoffs, which was able to play the best defense, have Ottinger play great as a youngster. Wedgwood became a good pickup when he was in for about 20 games. Holtby also played well. So he could be the wild card guy if he comes back, if they're able to somehow get through the Flames. But I'm not definitely nearly as confident with you on that. I picked the Flames in 5 with the money. I like the Stars big time, and I love Joe Pavelski. He's one of my favorite players of my lifetime, but unfortunately, I just don't see it because I think he got the most out of that roster and because they had to play with that big like defensive shot blocking bruiser style to get there, they might also be a team that, similar to what Pearlo's kind of said about Nashville, somewhat could be a little worn as well. Where I feel like Calgary's not going to be able to sweep them, but I do think they'll probably get them in 5 games just because their skating speed is going to take it. Like Luke Benning's not the quickest skater anymore. Fosca's a good defensive guy, so he's going to have to step up. Seguin's going to have to step up more for Dallas. And then the first line's going to have to keep doing as great as they did. So I could see it being maybe Dallas surprising, but it's going to have to be factors that I don't all see happening. And then maybe Harley becomes the guy you think he's going to be at 23 at 20 in this playoff. So, like, there's different ways to do it. Ottinger's a hell of a goalie, one of my favorite in the league. So I believe he could steal maybe more than 1 game. So it could go 6. I just picked 5 because I think the offensive pressure that the Calgary Flames are going to supply is just going to be too deadly for Dallas' even good shot blocking system that protects their goalie pretty well, and then Ottinger can make all the saves when needed. I just don't think it's going to be enough where the Flames have one of the best offensive teams, but also with Sutter started to play a very great defensive system with that offensive pressure that I think they're going to play better and have battle games that are maybe 5-3, 5-2 that are close in a good large part of the game, but I don't think the Stars are going to come out in the end. That's why I took the Flames in 5.
Let's see. How that works. Oh, I bet you it's working better now.
But did you end up getting your thing working? I figure I just answered Bill's question so you could get your mic working.
Let's see if it's working better now. I don't know. It's it's going way up above now. It should be working better now. I don't know what I did, but tell me in the comment section if it's working better. Anyways, yeah, it's got to be. It's going right up to the red now. It's going right up to the red. You know, when you for your input capture, when it tells you how high it goes, and it's going right up to the red. So if that's
now I can't hear you at all.
You can't hear me at all now? Wow. Well, I don't know then. That's weird. Did you hear me? Oh, could you hear me, Mark? Now what's going on? Let's see what it says here.
I hear you. No,
you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear it. I was just answering that question on the Stars for Bill. And Mark said no need to yell because of how loud your thing got from being low. You went 0 to 100 real quick, right?
Okay, there. Good. Anyways, so that's going to continue. I don't know how the Oilers are going to adjust to that. It was my biggest problem. I was saying that all along. I got ripped. Huge people ripping me, Edmonton Oilers fans, saying, "Do you see how good they're playing? Yeah, you can get away with it in the regular season. You're not going to get away with what they're doing in the playoffs." But I will say this: if they keep on calling like the way they're calling right now, the Oilers have a chance. If they keep on calling, keep on calling like they're calling right now, Florida will likely win the cup. I would say.
They have them or Colorado.
Yeah, or Colorado. It'll be Florida, Colorado in the finals. Yeah.
And also, Calgary would have a good chance of that because they have a lot of skilled guys too. Kachuk would just have to play a little bit less Kachuk, but they do have. He's a very skilled player as well. But
yeah,
I think they would also still have a chance if that's the case.
Yeah, I just think up the middle they're a little shy. Calgary has a better chance if they go back to putting their whistles in their pocket. I think, but if they keep on doing what they're doing, Colorado can do it either way. I think. They're just a little light in their third and fourth lines. Like they're not really a bruising team, but they're two-way play. They're two-way forwards of all their forwards. Every single forward is a fantastic two-way player. And if they're given everything they got, they're going to be like really, really, really difficult to beat, I think.
Yeah. Well, what did you say for your Calgary Stars? Because I
got Calgary. I got Calgary. The only issue I have with is, and this is something that Bonus is known for, this is what he does. If you notice Dallas all year, they have been playing 1-goal games all year long. Because what Rick Bowness does is he tells you to get up 1 goal and then protect it and protect it. Drives fans crazy. They all say he's a terrible coach and all of those sort of things like that. But when it comes to playoffs, that's what you got to do. So they have been playing the type of hockey that can win in the playoffs all the way up until now. I think the unfortunate thing for them is they drew Calgary.
Exactly.
If they would have got Edmonton, I would have took Dallas probably.
I might have too because their defensive shot blocking system. They also have guys that have been there more than Edmonton does in terms of deep runs. So yeah, I probably would have too. But yeah, they just met this buzzsaw offense that has a great 3-line depth.
Yeah.
On their team in Calgary, that I don't think they're going to be able to match up against that too well.
Nah, I don't think so. And if they, and Calgary can do it too. That's the problem. I mean, Calgary can shut it down if they want. They can do it more ways than Dallas can. And so now, what's going to happen with Dallas is everybody's going to buy in, just like when they made it to the finals, right? Now, the only thing was that you got to remember, Hudobin just went out of his head for that series. Like, he was just stupid. He hasn't been the same.
Yeah, and Ottinger has that potential, but Hudobin's not even in the picture anymore.
No.
Like, he's still in the minors. Right. Now it's just Scott Wedge and Jake Ottinger.
Right.
So.
Well,
and he's injured.
He never really did it before that, and he never did it after. It was just like this one magical run by Hudobin where he's just stopping everything. And but yeah, Ottinger could do it, I suppose. I mean, it's asking a lot. Was he 23? Is he 24 now?
Yeah, he's 23, so it's asking a lot out of the kid. But obviously, we know he has the talent in there. It's just the Flames, like you said, they can win in all different ways. Plus, they have a guy that isn't going to win it, but in other years probably would have a great chance to win it in Jacob Markstrom when it comes to the Vezina. Where this year he just has Shesterkin playing like a Mount Rushmore goalie. But Markstrom having his best season at 32. Playing with Sutter's system was probably the best case scenario for him. So I think, like everything you said of all the ways they have their defense has got career years out of the Gabransons and Zadorovs of the world as well, is the Tanevs of the world and Shilatings, who I know you always love. So I think this team is just everything's clicking at once that they just drew the wrong card, the Dallas Stars, and that's what's kind of good. But it was a heck of a regular season because they performed, I think, a little bit better than on paper the roster looked like they could have. So it was still a good regular season for the Stars.
Yeah. So anyways, I had Calgary in 5. But I mean, I could see 6. I could see that way of just, blocking shots all day. And, I could see that maybe winning 2. I could see draws going in overtime, stuff like that. With these two teams, and that's kind of the way they play. That's the way Rick Bowness teams generally play. Now, that being said, Rick Bowness has never really had like a blockbuster team either. So, he's never had like superstars and stuff like that. He was in Ottawa before. Was that the only other place he coached? Was Ottawa?
I think so because he was out of the league for years before he came back and then in a different role, and then came back to coaching with Dallas, and that's why people didn't like that off the bat either. And then it ended up being the key. Is Samsonov the answer for the Capitals, Bill? I would say no because he was terrible in the the season. I would roll with Vanacek.
They are going with Vanacek.
And that's coming from a guy that loves evaluating goaltenders and tries to be as harsh as possible. Samsonov was terrible this year, so unless if he really gets going, and he's a young goalie, I think he will get going again, but it'll probably take the offseason to make adjustments, and you can't make that in the postseason. I would roll with Vanacek, but even E-Money, who's a fan of the Capitals, he picked against them, and we both went Rangers in 6, where he went unbiased there because he said our goaltending and defense is not going to get it done in the end against the Rangers. or not against the Rangers, against the Panthers. I mean, his defense is not going to get it done in the end against the Panthers because the Panthers have the best offense in the entire NHL. And the fact that the Capitals are a team in the normal Eastern Conference that would probably be looked at a little bit more highly, but with how much of a gauntlet the East was this year, a 100-point season is not even looked at like it was anything spectacular, which is odd to say, but I feel like they're just kind of past their prime. Where when it comes to being Stanley Cup contenders, when it comes to being a good regular season team, that's a different thing. But I think the Panthers are entering their prime when it comes to being playoff contenders, and that's the difference there. That's why I don't think the Capitals have much of a chance because they're facing one of the best offenses with two goaltenders that have question marks.
That's what I wanted to check before I talk here. I wanted to check. There's one way, and it's actually the way, really, the Capitals won the Cup and had success before in the playoffs. Let me see here. Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, the one thing that the Capitals still have more than just about any other team out there is they're big. They're still a heavy team. About the only chance they have, I think, and you try to find an angle where they can win because you got so many things coming at you with Florida, right?
And their third line defense is not good. That's the problem I have with the Capitals too. Like I love TVR as a depth defenseman, but he shouldn't be playing 72 games for you. And Justin Schultz had a terrible season. So unless if he does well and TVR steps up in the playoffs, I feel like you only having two lines of defense is really going to cost you. When Florida, on top of being great, also Giroux is more of a playoff defenseman than regular season. He helps them 3 deep with Florida in the postseason as well. And then you got Montour or what's the other kid's name? Lucas Carlson, who played a lot of games for them. Robert Hagg as well, so they can mix and play with those guys when it comes to who you want to put with Giroux down there. If you want to add more tough nails, knock puck off guys, or add Montour, who was the offensive guy this year, that also played his best season in the defensive zone, but still is more of an offensive guy.
Yeah, I mean, Jensen shouldn't be in anybody's top 4. Like that's not very good. So yeah, there's a problem there, and if they have any injuries, then they're really in big trouble. You got Irwin and guys like that playing defense.
Jensen did though step up for being in a top 4. I agree with you; he shouldn't be in a top 4, but for what he had to do for Washington, for them calling upon him too much to play the ridiculous 20 minutes a night when he was a guy that's been more of a at best of a 5-6. I mean, he did pair well with Orlov, so I feel like he's kind of one of those guys that almost was the Justin Braun with Provy here in Philly, where it's like, well, Provy shouldn't be, or Braun shouldn't be playing that high up, but both of them have good chemistry. Sometimes things just work together, where I think that line just kind of worked together where him and Orlov got good chemistry and they just kind of rolled with it, where Jensen had his career year this year. So I agree he's not a prototypical top 4 defenseman, but sometimes stuff just works, and I understand why Laviolette kept that togetger.
Well, I don't think,
and he also
doesn't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Really, so they're Bill is asking, how do you feel about Blashill getting fired?
Me, I was more surprised than you. We had a phone conversation about this. I think he's still. Let's get it out of the way. We both think he's a good head coach. It's just, I'll let you talk about it. I more what your side is. I more think he didn't deserve what the Sixers did to switch it to basketball, Brett Brown treatment, because Brett Brown screwed up and made mistakes in the end. Where for me, Blashill sold the rebuild, got stuff out of the guys, was building it up, and then they just cut it from him in the end. Where I looked at it differently than the way that my Sixers handled it, because I thought he was starting to build it up, and it's kind of reminded me similar of how the Rangers got rid of their management staff, even though they rebuilt the team really good, and now it's obviously still working now with Drury and everybody they have, but even so, you get my point. When they got rid of Gordon, I feel like you should be able to see the end of something, and then because this year, yes, you did great in the first half, but come on, nobody thought the the Red Wings are being a playoff team coming into this season. So like, yeah, you did better in the first half. But then you fell off. I think everybody expected that. They're a young freaking team that's not ready yet. They're a year or two away. So for me, I think it was weird that it seemed like it was always the patience Jeff Blashill's guy. And even when Stevie came in, it was still he's the guy for the rebuild. So it was weird to me. I don't mind it because Yzerman's one of the best of all time to do it. I think he's going to find a perfect fit for the Red Wings. I just thought that they should have let him see it through just because of how good he did helping some of these guys to become better players in the rebuild. The only guy he really couldn't find success for was kind of Zadina, who's been by the wayside here, and I think he'll probably end up having to find success potentially elsewhere and do one of those change of scenery trades with somebody where you do one of those trades where a guy that needs a change of scenery on one team goes and then Zadina comes back the other way. So but otherwise, I thought you got a lot out of Dylan Larkin. Jacob Vrana has been great since he's come into Blashill's system. He just didn't play a lot of games this year. Suter's been good since coming into the system. Zadina's the only one that you still really want to see grow. I would say everybody else. Rasmussen needs to get better on both ends, but overall he had his best year. And then Volino's just a guy that needs to figure out his role in the NHL. I don't think he wants to be a third-line center. Me and my buddy Zach were talking about that the other day, but I think he has to realize that's what he is at the NHL level. Yeah. And then, so you have different things there. I think they were building in the right direction. I thought he was cut out a little prematurely because he also had Raymond and Sider come in and do great things with them. But it is what it is because I trust Steve Yzerman. I just would, if it was me, I would have let Blashill have a year that I thought we had a chance to contend. Which honestly, next year, if they make the right moves, would be the first year I would say, oh yeah, they're at least a bubble team that's building up from there. But we'll have to see what moves they make in the offseason.
Well, there you just segued into what my leaning is here. Blashill did a lot of work there. He brought guys up. I think in some ways Stevie's looking at that he might have brought some of these guys as far as they can go with him. That they made to be able to, like Zadina, for instance, I don't think they want to trade him. I think they would rather have another voice help him and see how that works out. Rasmussen, I think they had a little higher hopes for him to be more than what he is right now. Maybe not realistic, possibly, I don't know. And Volino as well. I think Volino, he had that Stevie Yzerman maybe thinks he could get a little more out of Volino with a different voice. And there's another part, though, that in combination with that is I think they're going to be adding this year. And I think it's quite possible that some of the players or one of the players, and I mean significant add. I really do.
Yeah.
I think they are going to significantly add this year. And it's quite possible that one of the players that they're looking at, there's a coach out there that they like a lot, that player would really like to be coached by. So it's a way to draw that player into the organization, whoever that player may be. I haven't really thought about it, but I think that happens a lot. If everything connects, they're not going to get a coach just for that. But if there's a coach out there that maybe coached him in college or, something of that nature or whatever, that they think that they can grab and they really like the coach as well, as much as they like Balsillie. And then you got a different voice to help out Zadina and stuff like that. That's kind of what I think I think that's part of it. It's part of it. We'll find out. We'll see who they bring in and we'll see if we can connect the dots on all that. But I think it's very possible that that's the case. I really think they're going to be going after like they've got a couple young defensemen coming up, but I mean, there's a pretty big gap there. I know Edvinsson is going to be good. He could be good sooner than we think. They got is it Wallstrom? That doesn't sound right. He looks like he's going to be a good, but there's a gap in defense.
Well, Jake Wallman was on their defense this year. If that's
they got him. They got him from St. Louis in that beautiful Letty deal.
Yeah, they got him. They got him from St. Louis, and then he ended up actually playing some valuable minutes. Surprising, more valuable minutes than they thought for him.
Well, I don't think that's surprise. I think he was kind of buried, and it was just. I think they knew that he was going to be. He's as good as what he is. But he was sort of buried in St. Louis mostly because of how much they were paying some of the guys there, that they didn't want to sit them,
Yeah.
right? But then
Well,
anything.
Detroit also has some of the best defensive prospects because on top of just Edvinson, they have um down low. They have he's still only 19 years of age, with a lot of room to grow. But William
That's
Relinder,
it. That's
they
that's who
have
I was thinking of. That's
oh
Vollander.
yeah.
Vollander. Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
he's
Wallander and then Antti Tuomisto is also 2019 35th pick. Then the 36th pick this year was Shy Balloon. So they keep picking guys, and you can tell what they're focusing on. They're building the back end up, and they have a lot of really good forwards too. Like the guy I'm interested to see because he can kind of, if Rasmussen doesn't develop, fill that role. A guy that's played good over in Sweden is that big dude Elmer Soderblom, and I've watched some of his games on Hockey TV. If Rasmussen doesn't start playing well, I feel like that kid will probably just come in because Rasmussen right now has just been playing as a big body 3-line winger. He'll just steal his job potentially if Rasmussen doesn't start going. But Rasmussen's also only 23, so if he gets kicking by 24, 25, he still has the time
yeah,
too. But I'm
especially
just saying,
a guy of Rasmussen's size. I mean, he's going to take a while to
they take
develop
longer
that.
to grow.
Yeah,
They take longer usually. Yeah.
but yeah, it was Vollander who I was thinking. He looks like he's going to be absolutely exceptional. But is it Stevie? He's not going to bring guys up. Edvinson might be able to do it. Edvinson is one of the few guys that even Stevie Y will say, okay, you're ready. He's that good. He's like Slavin like. So, that's going to be huge. And but I think they could add a significant veteran defenseman, and some veteran forwards as soon as this year with what they got coming up to. Then if those players do take over those jobs, it'll be guys that they're not going to give them no trade clauses, all the crap. You know what I mean? But really good guys, because I don't think Detroit wants to have another year where they're completely out of it. And that's part of the reason why Balsillie is out. That might even be, and there's another aspect of it. You have sponsors that are asking questions right now, like, hey, we've been waiting a while here. We've been patient.
That could be it too. Yeah, that could be it too. I just like having. I feel like he could, like, if he goes somewhere for a team that's more ready. I think Jeff Blashill is going to coach that type of team successfully.
Mark Brown brought up an exceptional. If they can get the league to allow Q back, for sure, Stevie Y is going to be all over that. For sure.
It seems like he's leaning that way. Because there's been, like, I know from watching different things on Sportsnet, because we have one of those TV boxes that let me watch your guys' channels too, and watching some of the other stuff, it seems like from how people talk about it, and they're like, well, Quinville's out there too. They wouldn't be saying that if it didn't seem to be leaning that way.
Yeah, if they're allowing Q back, Stevie Yzerman, I'm positive that's the guy for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah. I also left out a defenseman that kind of plays a simple style like Wallman, but Jared McKissick, who they picked in the second round a few years ago, he played a few games this year, was very good for Grand Rapids. I did leave out while mentioning Detroit's defense, but I think they're building a good thing there. They have, and the other thing is, even if Nedeljkovic, who I just think had a crap season, he's still young in the league. He hasn't even played. I think he just hit over. Let me see his career games. I think he literally just hit over 100, maybe. No, he's only at 88 NHL total games, so he's still really young in the league. I still think he's going to be fine. He just had a crap year. And I do think they don't have to trip over goaltending anyway, because Sebastian Cossa is one of the best goalie prospects in hockey. So what are they worrying about? But maybe they'll get a guy in there. Because Brandstrom, I don't know if they want Victor Brandstrom to be a favorite to back up next year or what they think of him. But otherwise, I could see them signing one of those veterans, like a Jones-level veteran or something like that, just to mix in. But I don't think they're going to have any issue with Nedeljkovic. I just think he had a bad year, and there's no point at over going nuts about that, because then eventually you're just going to block Kosa, or also Larson, that other goaltender that they have developing that they picked in the 6th round, who probably profiles now more as a backup, but like that's all you need if Nedeljkovic picks it up again. So you do have guys that profile as backup, so that's why I see them going with goalie, maybe like one of those veteran 1-year guys.
Yeah, well, since we're putting the pieces together, we said, okay, let's say it's Q, and like I said, we talked about how they could bring in, somebody. There's players out there that would come because Q is there. If that's the case, it actually doesn't even have to be anybody that ever played for Q. Like when you're talking about Quenneville, people are going to go there because Quenneville's there. Everybody knows how amazing of a coach he is.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if because before I think players, like similar to how Patrick Kane said, and people got mad at him with Bowman, still highlighting how much he did for his career in his statement, kind of condemning his actions, where I wonder if non-veteran players, which they have a lot of young guys, are going to have more the way that, which there's no problem with either way, but I know my generation and the next generation, the more, which makes sense, but like when something like that happens and you were part of it, they don't really want to be around you. So I wonder if that is going to be a factor also.
I don't think so. I think everybody knows.
I
think everybody knows.
People like look at.
I think everybody behind the scenes, everybody inside knows he got scapegoated, and that was it.
Yeah, because I don't think I think the upper management is the people that should be when they had the meetings, where I know they said in a couple of the meetings over that Coach Q wasn't always even present, where it was just usually he was, but other meetings were just the Hawks upper management staff, where he could have come out and said, yes, we need to do this, we need to do, but realistically, even if he said that, and we're not really going to ever know if he did, upper management is the people that make the last decision. So even if he said that, they could have said, well, no, everything's working right now. We're not going to. But they did say, the one problem I did have, if this is true, they did say that he was part of the people that said, let's not let this come out now because we're part of something good. If that's the case, then I do have a problem with him for that reason. But otherwise, he does have a very good resume, because I don't care if we're on a Stanley Cup playoff run. If I found out something like that happened and I was a coach of a team, I would say, we're releasing this right now. I don't care if it screws over the team.
It was a different time, and that doesn't make the action right. But unfortunately, we had a lot to learn back then about this sort of stuff.
Oh, we did, and I completely agree with that. But I'm just saying, like, I understand why they didn't want that coming out during that time, but then it didn't even come out after, and we found out about it years later. Like, they just kept riding on well, we're in good time, so we can't let this come out. That's why I think you have to, going forward, and teams are starting to be a lot more transparent about this stuff, but it's still not there yet, and we still have a lot to learn. You have to just let that stuff come out, whether you're in a cup run or not. If it screws over your team, it's nobody's fault other than those people involved. So you can't say, oh, well, we're in this wonderful land of success right now, we're not going to let this go. That's not how you should handle it.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Okay, well, I want to get to the Bill T here. He asked a great question as well, but so stick around, Bill. But my thing is not that maybe that he said what you just said or whatever. I wouldn't doubt that he did. I wouldn't doubt that most people in his situation back then would have did that. And I hear people say, "Oh, if I wouldn't have like done that." You're full of it. It was a different time back then. People thought of things differently. It's not right. It needs to go forward. But what I'm saying is he was scapegoated because the league did the same thing. Everybody they just made it look like their shit don't stink. That's all they did. Because the league did exactly what Q did. Said, let's not try to get this out. We'll try to take care of this away from the microscopes and all that kind of stuff like that. And then they ended up brushing it under the carpet, and then Quenneville loses his job, but the league's like, oh, I can't believe what Q did. we better punish them.
Okay,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
agree.
I'm not
Yeah,
saying that Q didn't do.
you're spot on.
I'm not saying that Q did nothing wrong, that it's not right, and I'm not saying the way we thought back then was right, but it is what we thought back then, and that is the truth. And that's we would have.
Well, it's what people in charge did. I don't know if people like me and you personally would have, because I feel like, personally, at least in my own morals, if I was running a team, I wouldn't have said we're in success land.
I'm saying in society as a whole. Society as a whole has grown up a lot since then. Thankfully for people like this fellow that came out and do these things, where we wake up and realize that when we hear somebody was assaulted like that, we don't just immediately assume the kid wanted to do it and now he's, all of those things like that. Yeah, that's what was happening back then. Somebody heard this and they thought, okay, well, first of all, you gay people, I don't want to talk about it. So let's just not even want to talk about it. You know what I mean? That's the way it was.
That's the other thing. Yeah, the hockey culture took a while to accept the fact of, and they're still having some accept it, but you do see in podcasts, world and players talking, they accept that in the locker room more now, but they took a while to accept the LGBTQ culture, yeah, especially.
So we've come a long way, and I just hope that they let Q come back and stuff like that. That might be difficult. That's what they're talking about, but we'll go back to it. If Q is there and he can do it, I think Stevie Y would be all over it.
Well, Mark Brown made a good point. There are guys that have the ear of the commissioner, like the Lamoriello that Bill brought up, and the Stevie Ys. If Stevie Y wants Coach Q, that's going to bring a stronger chance of Coach Q being able to come back than if Chuck Fletcher wants Coach Q and Stevie Y, not Stevie Y, Gary Bettman's going to be going, that's nice, Chuck. So there's a little bit of a different scenario there. I honestly think they would have a better chance of if Danny Briere was the one going, yeah, we want Coach, because Gary Bettman has respect for Danny, probably as how great of a player he was during his time in the league and what he's been able to do to grow the game from the bottom level up in the Double-A up. So I feel like that would even work out better than Chuck Fletcher, which is hilarious. But that's why I agree with Mark. If Bettman gets that from Stevie Y, then yeah, he's probably he'll have a better chance. Now, this is a question I want you to answer first, because I've got to really experience the greatness of Trotz and Lamoriello, but you got to experience throughout your whole life. I'm only going on 26. So the other question Bill asked, which is, do you think Lamoriello and Trotz will lead the Islanders? Any thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
I think if you're bringing Lamoriello and Trotz in like that, I mean, first of all, both would be gone if they're going to go. Lamoriello, if you're bringing in Lamoriello, when they were bringing in Lamoriello, what they were trying to achieve is to build a culture of loyalty within their organization. And that's what Lamoriello does. Lamoriello is the most loyal guy, and they wanted to build that culture in their organization. Now, I wonder how much that is permeated through New Jersey now. If they still have those principles that Lamoriello put there, if they instilled there. But I think they're gonna keep on rolling. The only way that I see them letting either one of them go, well, especially Lamoriello, is if they do come across and say, okay, we got to rebuild now, because Lamoriello's too old to be rebuilding anything.
Yeah,
right?
There's no way. There's no way to lose that. I don't know why he would want to.
No. So other than that, I think they keep on rolling with that, whatever they have there. I still to this, and that's the reason why people say, well, why did they get Parise? Why did they get Chara? Because they want to build an element of loyalty there. Now, there's some
and locker room culture, like you hit that on the head too, with the locker room
culture, which is all involved. Which is all with loyalty, right? So, what would you think? Do you think? Do you agree with that, or do you think that they're likely going to stick around with them?
Well, first of all, if I was the guy, I like to try to think of it because I feel like you can make it the best decision when you try to think about it from in your shoes. What would you do if I was the guy of the owner of the Islanders? There's no chance I want to lose two guys that are going in, that are Hall of Fame level at their jobs.
Yeah.
So, like I would want to keep both of them. The Lou Lamoriello, if you're going to rebuild, yeah, you're not keeping Lou. But if you're not rebuilding and you're doing this retooling on the fly that the Islanders have kind of been doing for 78 years, then you will be able to do that, and Lou's very good at doing that, because the other thing that I don't think people have seen with the Islanders is you still got Villiers. Yes, he has been stagnant a little bit more lately, but you have Wallstrom, who signs this year and is only 21. So if he can keep growing, he's younger. Barzell's still entering his prime, which is scary to say after having an off season. Dobson's very young, entering his not even entering his prime yet. He's still too young to be considered entering his prime. So you have all these guys, Pellick, Pula, great defenseman. Dobson's going to add in. So I think they have the bones, and heck of a goaltender. So I think they have the bones to make this team good again, that if they're in the playoffs again next year, I'm not even going to be shocked. Because they're a team with Amorello and with Trotz getting the most out of a team. They also had a lot of manpower loss games this year, where I feel like the Islanders were one of those teams coming in where you were like, well, if they get injured, they're going to be screwed. And that is kind of what happened to them, where they weren't able to persevere past that. They need to get what they need to get is more depth. If they have Lee, Nelson, and Bailey, even though they're all in their 30s, they're still able to produce enough. Parise had a good season, but you can give or take if you want to keep Zach Parise. Like, that's if you want to keep him around, you can keep him around. If not, then you don't. Barzell, Palmieri, they're fine. Gabriel Pageau was fine this year. I think they probably expected a little bit more out of him for sure, but he was fine this year, but maybe they'll get more out of him going forward. So I think it's about getting some of these guys to mix in these bottom sixers. Plus, you have to get one guy in your top six that I think is really going to help your scoring, because you shouldn't have both Kyle Palmieri and Zach Parise at this point of their careers in your top six. So you have to add one guy there, and then I would say depth, scoring, and probably a veteran defenseman, because right now their best veteran defenseman is, I believe, Scott Mayfield. So you probably want to add like that. That's above, like, and I'm talking about like about to enter 30. Like Pellick and Pulick are veteran defensemen, but I mean guys that are like been around the block for a while and are like entering their 30s, been either in a lot of AHL, NHL seasons combined, or a lot of NHL seasons. The only guy they have like that is Scott Mayfield. So you might want to add in like your version of an Edler, your version of a Goligoski, and have that, which was Chara this year, but Chara looks like he's retiring. And it was great to see him have that goal at the end of the year to go out with that. That's what I would focus on, but I feel like Lamoriello can turn this and add guys into that veteran core that they still have. I think this team could be like the Capitals and kind of still be good. It's just once they get to the playoffs, we might be saying some of the same things we're saying about the Caps this year. Like, they might just be past their best point of the playoffs. The difference, though, with the Islanders would be if they got there having to scratch and claw, they have a much better goaltender than the Capitals have, because Sorokin, it seems like he's an absolute stud.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's Sorokin to me is a big thing. They're going to get rest, and they're going to come back and play Trotz's system again, and it's pretty much going to be what they always do. They're going to be super effective for 3/4 of the season. They're going to way overuse their veterans, and then they'll dip right around playoffs, finish about 7th, 6th or 7th, something like that, and then, good chance they make the semifinals with the type of game that they play. Especially with Sorokin. That guy is, we've been talking about him for quite a while. He could be like, in the stratosphere of Shesterkin. I'm not saying he's going to be as good, but in that stratosphere, he's like really, really good.
They're both in the top tier of Russian goaltenders, I would say. It's just Sorokin makes the top tier still look hilarious, where like he's even a little bit above that, where I would say Shesterkin, where Sorokin and Shesterkin are both in the top tier, where the guy, if we can get Ivan to come over and both Kochetkov, they're in the second tier of still very good Russian goaltenders, but like I would say both Shesterkin and Sorokin are in the top tier, and then the kid for the Hurricanes, Kachekov, and our kid for Fedotov, just to give two examples there, are in the second tier. Samsonov right now was second tier. He's like borderline going down to 3. Can he come back up to second? But Samsonov was higher, but now we have to see what he can do. He's still young in the league, and as I said about Nedeljkovic, I'm not going to stress over him having a bad season this young in the league. Yeah. But we have to see him bounce back, of course.
And their cap situation's not good. They got to sign Noah Dobson, which I'm sure he's going to have to get a bridge, because as much as you would love to sign him long term right now,
lock him up.
I don't think he wants to get locked up right now. He's probably going to gamble on himself. He had a great year, and I'm pretty sure he's going to want to continue in that vein. So adding whatever you think you need to add here is a little, easier said than done. I mean, Kiefer Bellows will get a bit of a raise, but not too much. Although, here's the thing, and this is what we were saying about loyalty, right? They have not given up on Kiefer. He's 23. And I think he's going to have a great year next year. I think Kiefer Bellows is going to have a really good year next year. Yeah, and they never gave up on Anthony Beauvillier. And the reason why they do this is, it's not the reason, but it's certainly a big aspect of the reason why you bring loyalty and a family and all of those sort of things. That's what Lamoriello's about. That's why what I love about Lamoriello is never see Lamoriello trade a player for like a 7th round pick. And I've heard,
he's never just.
And I've heard him
roster.
No, and I've heard him say it before in a thing. He goes like, if you think my player is only worth that, then you don't want him. And I'm not going to. This is a human being here who has a family. See what I'm saying? I'm not for that alone. I am not going to just take some 7th round pick and like dispose of him. That's what Lamoriello's about. And what happens when you do that, then I think the Islanders figured this out as well, is players will stay for less when you have a situation like that where you feel like
and players will come in for less.
That's right.
Too, if you can come into that culture, there's also that side of it also.
Yeah. Well, Barry Trotz lied that they said, well, what's he going to say? Barry Trotz is going to be like, oh, we might make it.
No, I think that's just talking the talk. Yeah, you're not going to come out and we suck this year. We're not going to get over the hump because that's not really going to help. Like, that's being blunt, but it's not going to really help anybody in that setting. The funny thing is, you talked about how Trotz loves using his veterans. I feel like a coach that gets a lot of rip just because he's from the Flyers hierarchy, and this is to the Flyers fans on here. I feel like Lappy actually has learned a lot from Trotz, because I've been in a lot of press conferences with him, Perry, and a repeating theme is I've called a lot about Cal O'Reilly. I called a lot on Adam Glendening. I called a lot on blah blah blah, the veterans of the Phantoms, and he plays a lot of those guys per minute with with some young guys as well to help them develop. But like, I feel like people in the first season got on Lappy too much because he does have character traits of some of the best coaches. Just it was his first freaking season, so like sometimes you got to give a guy room to grow. And they sucked in the first 2 months of the season. They honestly would have been good otherwise. But once you said that, that just made me think of that, because in those press he was always about talking up the veterans, and I think he's about building a culture as much as he's about building the winning team with Perrier, because he even talked about it. If I have to be a guy that has to be a hard-nosed, basically SOB, I'm going to quit. And he said, I'm serious, I'm going to quit my job, because that's not the way he wants to be able to build the good culture that Lou does, and be like Trotz. If you have to be a little hard-nosed, be hard-nosed, but don't be like that son of a you-know-what hard-nosed prick. So, like, that. So I think I'll give him that shout out for that, since the Phantom season ended, and I think he did a pretty good job in the second half of it. Honestly, it's just he has a lot of room to learn, but he admitted to that, and so did Barry Trotz as a young coach in the league. When you go back and look at interviews, and it's good to be able to admit to your flaws, and that's what usually makes guys into very good coaches.
Yeah.
Bellows, though, before we go on, I did want to comment on that, just because I got to watch him obviously covering the AHL too. I think I'm happy you said that too, because you watched him mainly in the NHL level, where I think he still has pretty darn good, because this year he had a weird season because he wasn't always in and he was never actually down with Bridgeport, but he still played pretty good, all things considered, for having to get subbed in, not always being come back in. So I thought he did fine. And then in the final season, not last year, 2 years ago, the final season of the Sound Tigers before they switched their name, which is stupid, but that's a different story for a different time. He did really good in that season too. So I think he's one of those. We mentioned different players earlier in the podcast that are kind of those slow budding players. I think he's just one of those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we got to get going here, but when you're talking about an Islander system as a young player, like I'll tell you this right now, Trevor Zegras would not be getting the minutes he's getting if he was on the island.
No, and it's a different philosophy.
Totally different philosophy. Barzal had to learn how to go into it. He's if Barzal was on a different team, he'd have way more points than he does right now. But they have a two-way four-line. They believe in a four-line system, and they believe that all your T's are crossed and all that stuff like that, and that's why they have so much success in the playoffs. And they do that. It's a culture that they build throughout the regular season. And guys like Bellows and these young players, like you'll notice a lot of their young players, it takes a long time to get that because you don't learn that until you hit there. In fact, you won't learn that in a lot of the places you go to in the NHL. So it's a whole new world. And guys like Kiefer Bellows, who are one-shot shooters, same as Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom is a one-shot shooter kind of guy. They're teaching them, you got to learn all of this before we're just going to throw you out there and you can, throw your pretty shot at the net all the time. And it takes a while there. But I have to get going here, guys. Sorry about that. I got to go pick up Caroline. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but I didn't have time. Anyways.
Mark,
I know what it was. I have a little bit of concern with the Capitals with Florida because of Lavi. Something in me has Lavi, something in me has me thinking that Lavi is going to have these guys in a position that they could surprise Florida. It's Lavi. That's why. He's good at it. He's really good at it. He did it.
Getting the most.
Yeah, Carolina, Philadelphia. He's did it over and over and over again, and he sets it up at the perfect time every time. So that's kind of scary. But I got to go. All right. See you later, guys. Thanks for coming on. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Joe, for coming on. That was good times. We'll have to do this again. Maybe we can do it one evening and see if we can get how many people we can get in here.
Yeah, that would be cool if we did that. And Mark, also, I love the Sound Tigers logo. That's why I said that. The Islanders name, that's fine. The Sound Tigers logo is one of the best AHL logos. That's why I said that.
All right, see you later, guys. That's my full 42. I got a bolt. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Okay, bye.